It'll just be recorded. All right. Thank you all very much for joining us. My name is John Reed, the editor of the PW Perspective, Virginia's anti-racist voice. And joining me today is the features editor of the Panther at Chapman University, Miss Micaela Bastianelli, a senior at Chapman University. And so she has written many wonderful articles. Please make sure to check her out and at the Panther. And so, Micaela, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am stressed with the schoolwork that I have and, being an editor, but it's going well. I'm enjoying it. It's a fun process.
Wonderful. And like I said, for those, I know that, like I said, this is your senior year. So, I know you're looking forward to getting to the end of the road soon.
Yes, I am. I have 2 more months. So all this hard work will finally pay off at the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, let me ask you this before we really get started. Now, I know, like I said, most of your life you've been in Orange, California, correct?
For most of my life?
Yes.
No, actually. I grew up in LA for a good portion of my life. And then I moved to Corona, like during 4th grade, like Corona, like Elsinore area. So I was out there for like the majority of my life. And then, yeah, so being in college in Orange is my first time being out here.
Okay. And do you find it different for those who may not know what those different environments are like? How different is it than being in a place that's Corona or in Los Angeles?
It's very different. Well, actually, I will say, so I didn't live out here, but I did go to Villa Park High School for 2 years. Since my parents are professors out here, I would travel back and forth with them. So I've never lived in Orange, but I did experience going to high school out here for 2 years. And it's very, very different back home in Corona. It's way more diverse out there than it is out here. Very different experience. And in elementary school, I was, used to being around a majority white kids, but moving to Corona, in middle school, my early childhood, it was very different. I felt more comfortable. I felt, around more my own people. So going back to Villa Park, it was another culture shock because I had been around a diverse community for a really long time. And that's actually why I moved back. I was only there for 2 years because I just couldn't take it. I felt like I wasn't supported. I felt like no one really could relate to me. So yeah, they're very different. And it's crazy because it's only a 40-minute drive away and the community is so different.
Wow, it's interesting to bring that up, Michaela, because I think for a lot of people, when they think of California, they think everything is so diverse, especially in the middle of the southern parts of the states. And for what you experienced personally, and I kind of want to draw back onto that, when you knew that you were in a predominantly white area, did you understand at early time about your blackness and about what it meant to be of a different culture?
When I came to Villa Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. I understand what it meant to be part of a different culture. Definitely. I'm mixed race, so I'm Black and white, but my mother and my stepfather are both Black. So, and I wasn't close to my biological father's family. So, for me, culturally, I didn't identify with being white. I have always grown up around Black culture, and so even though I look very light skinned, it didn't occur to me that I was,
Right.
white besides my skin color because, I always fit in with my Black peers and like I related with Black culture. So when I went to Villa Park, I definitely was aware of the culture difference that I had compared to my peers. And it did make me feel different because even though I looked a certain way, once they found out that I was Black, they treated me differently. And I'm like, I look pretty similar to you, but because I'm Black and like, the things that we can talk about aren't relatable, they would treat me differently. And I felt like I didn't fit in with them. So I
Yeah.
definitely like.
No, I definitely understand it because it's funny. Because I grew up in Macon, Georgia, Middle Georgia. It was about an hour outside of Atlanta. And my mother is white and my father is Black. And so, I kind of understood. We were in Georgia, of course, South is still living in some ways the past. And it's unfortunate. But we live in a time where we were, and I don't know if you ever watched Miss before, but on ABC, Miss is kind of the spinoff of Blackish. And so
Mixed-ish. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes. And so we were kind of that same way where we felt at times we were too Black for the white people and too white for the Black. And so my brothers and I, we were kind of in the middle. And it was very difficult. And so when we moved here, I was 15 when we moved here to the Northern Virginia area, which is the city we live in is 22 miles outside of Washington, D.C. It was easier because we felt more accepted by more everyone. It wasn't things weren't kind of in such black and white, you know what I mean? And so never understand what that's like. It's a sense of comfortability that we had. But really getting ready to see some of the issues up close and personal because people here were a little more expressive about the way they felt. And so going through that, and like I said, then what you did at Villa Park, and then eventually as you went on, when did you begin to discover your love of writing, which led you to become a features editor at the Panther?
So I've always loved writing since I was a kid, and my mom and my teachers all knew that I was good at writing. That was always a strong suit of mine. And I remember actually, I was in preschool. I don't remember, my mom told me, but she told me that there was a time when I think I was like 3 or 4. And I was trying to explain to this girl who was on the swings. And I was like, it's my turn to swing. Like, you've been on the swing for 10 minutes. It's my turn. Like, I was like vocalizing in complete sentences how I felt. And this girl was not understanding me. And the teacher told my mom, like, Micaela is getting really frustrated at school because she can speak in full sentences and no one else can. So like, we don't know what to do with her because her vocabulary is very different from all the other kids. So like, I've always been, when it comes to like language arts, it's always been like my niche, but it's funny because growing up, I didn't feel like that was a very prestigious career because I grew up with, parents who were college professors. So I always thought that I needed to do something in math or science or business or something related, along those lines, something in STEM. So when I came to college, I was a science major, and then I switched to business, and then I switched to sociology, and now I'm a sociology and English double major. So it took me a while to finally accept the fact that I can love what I'm good at and be good at it. And it doesn't matter if I make a lot of money, I can do what I love and be good at it, and that's what will bring me money, So
Absolutely.
yeah, it wasn't really until, honestly, probably the end of my sophomore year, beginning of junior year, where I really was like, okay, this is what I love to do. I need to stop hiding from it or stop denying it, and just follow my heart and what I love to do. So I became a features writer, I think 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was a features writer for a year. Then I became assistant features editor for 1 semester, and then I got promoted to features editor after that. So yeah, it took me a while to finally just listen to my heart and like what I love to do, but now I'm happy I'm here.
Absolutely, and as you brought that up, Micaela, because I think what happens is so often, especially when people talk about writing and content creators, whether it's writing, producing, or what have you, and the instant you say that, oh well, this is where I'm gonna go to, this is where I'm really good at, instantly the first thought becomes, well, you're not gonna make a lot of money out of it.
Right.
And I can speak from personal experience. For years, I talk with people and say, hey, this is what I know what I want to do. This is what I'm really passionate about. But the first comment will be, well, if you're not going to get a job, you're not going to be able to make much money. You should work in the government. Of course, here in this area, that's all people focus on. And so you kind of get into that mental trap. And you think that's where, okay, I've got to take care of the money. And then if I have some time, maybe I could do some writing. But it's so great that you discovered that early. And that, like I said, your gift has made so much room for you already. Like I said, you're talking to so many wonderful people and be able to talk about experiences that a lot of us, didn't get the opportunity to do so at such a young age. Micaela, can you talk a little bit about, when we talk about writing, what were some of the things that you would write about, some things that inspired you to write?
So I've always loved like a variety of different topics. At first I was super interested in entertainment issues. I like music, I like art. So, I really was drawn to that. But I have, this activist side to me that's also like you need to cater to your community and write about social justice issues, write about race issues. So I found that I needed to kind of insert my voice there a little bit more. Um, I still love writing about entertainment issues as well because they're very fun and I enjoy that. But I also have to remember to like, you know, cater to my community. Like I feel like that's important to me, serve my community and through my writing. So I think all topics that have to do with race issues, and since I'm at the Panther, they are more specific to Chapman. And if that's where I can make my mark right now, then that's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, I feel that I need to write about that because no one else is really gonna do it. And I do feel like because I am the only board member who is Black, it's kind of my duty to do so because no one else really knows how to write about it, or no one else has those connections like I do. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Micaela Bastianelli is joining us. So, Micaela, and let's kind of segue into that. And one of the articles that you wrote about very recently was talking about the sit-in, I believe, at the BSU sit-in in responses to a professor at Chapman who actually praised the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol up here in Washington D.C. And let me ask you first this question, because what was going through your mind and some of your colleagues as you saw the insurrection take place on January 6th?
Ooh, that's a great question. I was watching it on my computer screen the whole day. I think I was just in awe, if I'm being honest. And I think not awe in a good way. Like awe, like I was so shocked. Like, I mean, not shocked because I feel like in this country you can't really be shocked by stuff that happens like that nowadays, which is, sad to say. But I think I was just shocked to see it right in front of me on my screen. Um, just it was very bold. Like I don't know, it just I think you always hear about people saying this and that or tweeting this and that, but then when you have something as big as this, trying to insurrect the Capitol, I think to see that in front of your face is something bigger, is something different, and that's yeah. So I think I was just in utter shock, and I remember we have this group chat for the Panther, and we're just going off in the group chat. Like, what are we going to do about this? Like, as a staff, like, how are we going to go about this next issue? How are we going to write about it? Um, yeah, I think, yeah, I don't have another. I was just really shocked and sad. And it, of course, made me cry because I'm very emotional. And I think about me and my family and the rest of our people in the country and the fact that we have to deal with this on a daily basis. Um, yeah, I think it just and it sucks because there's no other emotion you can really feel because there's not much else you can do as one human being. So I think that's what hurt the most is all you can do is sit there and just stare at the screen and feel sad and cry because there's nothing else you can really do in that moment, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'm thinking, I'm 20 miles away from this, and everything in me as a journalist said, go up there,
Mhm.
because one of my staff members actually was across the street when it was taking place. And he was like, hey, you want me to take pictures? I was like, no, as the editor, I was like, no, got to protect this because we didn't know what was going on. And whether it was the Charlottesville situation in August 2017, was down there and just seeing the brutality, the sadness, and then watching it up close and personal here, it does hit home. Like you said, I think we were all just in utter shock.
Yeah.
And so I was always curious to see on the other side of the country, what were the viewpoints? And you just talked about, you talked about with your staff and how how you had to cover this. So now you're taking away, Micaela Bastianelli, the student, the human being, the emotion side. Now you have to put on your editor's hat on and say, okay, we have to deal with this. And so can you kind of take us through what happened with the comments that took place with the professor and then the resultant sit-in? So how did that all come together?
The sit-in itself, how did it come? Um, basically BSU decided that we needed because okay, let me rewind. So after the events took place at the Capitol, the president sent out an email saying that they were going to hold a vigil for Chapman. Just a place for people to come and feel at peace. If they felt lonely at home watching the events take place, they had a safe place to come and pray and just have a moment of silence and feel a sense of peace. But BSU felt like they were because they were holding this vigil, they were, you know, basically saying it was okay that this happened. They felt like they were, because I think they wanted to pray for people that had lost their lives there or something like that. So they felt like, you know, you're not really accepting the fact that this is bad that this is occurring. You're kind of making it, you know, you're making this a place to pray for people that, you know, just tried to insurrect the Capitol, you know, and you're not really acknowledging the bigger picture of it. So they felt like they needed to go and sit in and tell them to listen to Black voices. And from the looks of it, they weren't having any of it. They weren't trying to hear anybody. I did get a chance to speak to all sides. So, you know, as a journalist, it makes it hard because you get all these different things thrown at you, you know, different perspectives, and you're like, okay, I get this side and I also get this side. So, you know, for me, it's like no one else gets to hear those sides but me. So it's like, you know, everyone has their strong opinion and I'm here like, well, I got to hear everybody. So I don't know how I feel. Um, but you know, BSU felt like they weren't hearing Black voices, which I understand. Outside, if I were an outsider looking in, it would look like that. Um, you know, but and I did get to speak with, you know, people who hosted the event, and they were saying that wasn't our intention at all. We weren't trying to silence people. It was just that, you know, this wasn't really the place for protest. And there's a lot more to it, but I don't, and the mics were muted and the chat box was closed and they weren't letting anybody speak. And they were saying that that was they had chosen to do that before the event even took place. It wasn't like they decided to do that once BSU came and tried to vocalize their or use their voices. But I mean, you never know what to believe, but that's what, you know, they told me. They said that they never had any intentions of silencing anyone. That was just, the whole protocol was to just come and feel a sense of peace, and no one was supposed to talk at all. So it wasn't like they were choosing to just silence certain people. Um, but yeah, you never know. You never know
That's definitely
what the truth is, but you know, it's still important to talk about everyone's side and important to get it out there. And that's my job, is to let everyone know what everyone else said. So
absolutely, and that's the thing, you know, and I'm glad you brought that up, Micaela, because I think sometimes as journalists, you know, especially in the world we live in now, where there's extremism on, regardless of political affiliation, and people expect you to take an extreme point of view, and not only you take an extreme point of view, is almost you refuse to hear from the other side. And one of the things as journalists, is especially, and this is what I want to get to the crux of, especially when we live in a world where you are a Black journalist, because it is expected, okay, you know, you're only supposed to be talking about issues that cover one side of the coin. And so when you're confronted with those issues, you know, and you talked about, oh, okay, I have to be able to listen to both sides of it. You know, talk a little bit about just separating yourself from that, from the emotional side, to say, okay, I have to make sure I hear both. And why is it so important, especially as Black journalists, why we need to do that?
yeah, it's super tough. It is so tough, especially, you know, as a Black woman. It's hard because there are so many times where I want to pick a side and I only want to cover one side. But as a journalist, you can't do that. I mean, you have to hear everyone's point of view. And I think also the reason why that's so important is because no one, because you have one side here and you have one side here. These sides have their strong opinions, but they never talk to each other. So it's like I'm kind of like the mediator, you know? It's like I am the person who writes the story expressing everyone's side, and then these people read it and they're like, oh, that's what they were doing. These people read it and they're like, oh, that's what they were doing. So I think it's just my job to tell the complete story and not pick a side. It's my job to put it out there what everyone meant, and it's their jobs to decipher what each side meant. And because, you know, when you have opposing views like that, people don't usually talk to each other. Like for instance, with political affiliations, or even at Chapman, you have the administration and the students, and they don't tend to talk to each other. And I'm the one that gets to talk to all of them and get the full story out there. So I think my job is to be the mediator in a sense.
Absolutely, it does. And so I want to kind of piggyback off that, if I could. and just talk a little bit about in our role in media, and especially when we talk about now the need more than ever before of anti-racist media. And so I don't know if you ever got a chance to read, Dr. Ibram Skindy's book, How to Be Anti-Racist, or Stamp, or some of the other books. But what role do Black journalists play in expressing the need for more anti-racist media to really have a voice for Black people?
It's a good one. Can you say the question one more time?
Absolutely, absolutely. What role as Black journalists do we must we play in having more anti-racist voices in today's media?
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't really know the answer to that one. What role do we play in making sure that there's more anti-racist?
Or maybe if I could say it this way, should we be more anti-racist when it comes to our media coverage as Black journalists?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. Definitely. I think that's a given. I mean, I think that's a complicated issue. I think, we have to be anti-racist, but I think it's still important as Black journalists to express Black stories. You know what I mean? And yeah, so not be racist, but still provide a platform for Black voices, because we don't have that. And I think that's our job as Black journalists, is to give Black people that platform. So, and I don't think us expressing our stories is necessarily racism. If someone expresses, their experiences with racism, that's them expressing their story, but that's not promoting racism, So yeah, I think, to answer your question.
You bring up a great point there, Micaela, because I think, when people say, well, you're an anti-racist, journalist, or you pose these issues, it's not so much being anti-racist, but it's also what we're for. And we're pro-Black. The quote, Issa Rae, I'm at the Oscars several years ago, I root for everyone Black, right? And so we root for it, but it's not so much what you're against, it's also what you're for. But in order to show that someone you're for something, you also have to expose the other side and say, hey, this is what we're also against. But as Black journalists, I do believe we do have to have that delicate balance. And I'm glad you expressed that. And just going to want to advance on that if I could. In some of the articles you've written about, a couple of ones that were really of your interest was talk about the tap dancing diaspora, and with, Black women, and the need to talk about them in tap dancing, and why that's a topic we really don't get into. And when you're studying that and doing your research for that, can you just share, for those who may not know, what that story was about and why it's so important for Black women to have their story expressed about tap dancing?
Yeah, so that story was about, I don't remember her name. Her name was Chloe. I don't remember her last name.
Yeah,
but she is a Black tap dancer, and basically she's a professional Black tap dancer. And growing up, she didn't have a lot of Black tap dancing role models to look up to. A lot of her role models were, other white men and women who were tap dancers. So basically, it's a field that Black people didn't really know that they had access to. And she kind of found her way into that. And she is expressing her story and telling other Black women who may want to go into tap dancing, hey, look at me, I did it, you can do it too. But yeah, that was an area that Black people didn't really have a network into, because they didn't feel like that was for them. And she kind of made it aware that it can be a network for anybody, but yeah, that's what that one was about. That one was a really good story. I love talking to her. Chloe Arnold, that was her name.
That's right. And, it was such an inspiring story, because as you brought that up, growing up, the only tap dance, especially Black role models we had were, late great Gregory Hines, Simon Glover, we had those, but we only saw men. So when I start story, I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, Black women is tap dancing too. It was just like, mind blown experience. And so I had to go back and study and then watch some videos on Amazon about that. And I was like, wow, this is really amazing. Just the stories that need to be shared, because we often, like you said, we don't see that, especially when you're younger and you don't find those kind of models that look like you. That's why, especially with ballerina, we see the Misty Copans, we see so many dynamic Black women in so many areas that need to be expressed more often. And so was a great things when you express that art and that in your writing that really brought home something that needed to be discussed way more often. But you do way more than just talk about issues within the Black culture. There was a story you did as well for Opportunity Dot, the story of Wendy Herrera, and and
Oh, yeah.
and that story was amazing because talking about some of the cultures, especially in the Latinx community. And so, could you just share a bit about that story and what was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, so that one I wrote a while ago. Let me go back. um, so she had created I think it was a documentary, and
Mhm.
it was her, the piece she wrote to apply for Chapman's film school. And she was explaining to me that, she felt like she needed to express her culture and her background and where she comes from, which is an Hispanic background, and, make a film about immigration because there's not many out there, especially from someone who comes from a family of it, who has a background of it. So she felt like, I need to make a story that reflects someone in my family who actually did immigrate. And yeah, she wanted to express her personal story as a person of color, which I thought was amazing. And it was an amazing film. It was like, I think it was like 2 or 3 minutes, but it was great. And I really liked it. But yeah, I think we need a lot more um, POC filmmakers. And she is one of them. And her film was amazing. And I loved covering that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think you did another cover story for someone at Chapman who works in film production, a Black woman, and I didn't get a chance to read. I forgot her name. That someone who's majored in film production, and I
Was
forgot.
it was it a recent one?
Yes, it was a recent one. I can't remember her name for the life of me. It was a Black woman who's majoring in film and talk about some of the projects and just kind of to advance on what you said about more POCs, especially for Black women doing film production. That's something we really don't see. I mean, we're starting to see it now, and we're starting to see the accolades for people like Regina King and something's One Night in Miami and so many others, and of course Ava DuVernay, and I can go on and on.
Yeah.
Many powerful Black women who did that. But I've got to go home on this one, and you talk about the time you got to interview Mr. Barry Jenkins. I know we talked this off camera. I'm so jealous. And so, can you share for our viewers, what was that like?
Yeah, so that will forever be, it's funny because I only got to ask him one question, but it was a highlight for me. I looked up on Chapman's website their upcoming events. Like this was like 2 weeks before it even happened. And I went to my editor and I was like, I have to cover this story. I love Barry Jenkins. If Beale Street Could Talk is my favorite movie of
Oh,
all time.
yes. Love that movie. Yes.
Yeah, so I've watched it over and over. So I was like, there's no way that I'm not covering this story. So, and it's funny because someone else was like, oh, I wanted to do that story. And my editor was like, no, Micaela gets to do this story. So yeah, I was super, super excited. And I tried contacting his PR team. No one was responding. So I emailed someone who had put the event together at Chapman, and I asked them if they could get me into contact with him. And they said, unfortunately, he's super busy. He can't. So I was like, okay, well, if I don't have that option, since I am a member of the media, can I be, guaranteed one question when I go
Mhm.
into the event?
Right.
And they said, of course. So yeah, I was the first person to ask a question. I just remember like it was like 30 minutes before it was even my turn to talk, but like the whole 30 minutes I was just sitting there shaking because I was so nervous to talk to him. Like all I had to say was one question, and it was like the most terrifying moment just because it's Barry Jenkins and it's not even in person, he's on my computer screen. But
Right.
it was still like it was so nerve-wracking. And also there's like 600 people on the Zoom call and your face is pinned up there and everyone gets to see you, so that made me more nervous. But yeah, I remember when I first popped up on the screen, I like told him, I was like, you know if Beale Street Could Talk is my all-time favorite movie, so thank you for that masterpiece. And he
Yes.
smiled and he was like, thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. You're so
Yeah.
welcome.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I asked him my question and he gave me a very long answer that I honestly had to go back and listen to because I was so nervous that I didn't even get it all in when he was talking. But yeah, it was a great moment. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, absolutely. If you ever get a chance to go to Memphis, go to visit Beale Street, I highly recommend it. It's an experience if you ever get a chance to visit. And yeah, definitely know that feeling. And that is just amazing. And just some of the things that you've already done in journalism. And if you could just share, especially for young Black women who may want to go in this industry, but may have been told, hey, focus on something else. What words would you say to them? Or maybe you can speak just some words of encouragement.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, what I had to learn, definitely follow your heart. That is the biggest lesson that I learned. If you love to write, even if you don't think you're good at it now, you probably are. And you have to get your foot in the door somehow and try it out and, get that constructive criticism, because I wasn't perfect at it when I first started, but you have to stay at it and your voice is needed. And it's very, very important. As a Black journalist, we need more. So like if that's something you're interested in, please go for it and try it and learn. Like I said, no one's perfect at it when they first start out, but you catch on. And I mean, these stories are stories that need to be heard and need to be told. So yeah, I do it. Just follow your heart. And even if you know starting in the career, even if you don't make $1 million your first year, like I think the experience is worth it. You're doing what you love, you're making an impact as a Black journalist. And that's of much more value than making a lot of money.
Absolutely. The imprint that you leave on people. All right, let's bring it home with this then. Micaela Bastianelli, your life in one sentence.
My life in one sentence.
What's your life? If you can speak one sentence that speaks to who you are, what would it be?
Ooh, I've never been asked that question. Oh man. My life in one sentence. Like right now?
It's like, that's like, because it's a question I ask of everyone of I interview teams. And so it is always something to really say, hey, if I could highlight myself, I could present myself, my story, what would it be? Or maybe it's a sentence, a song, or something that says that describes you.
Jumbled up and chaotic. No. No.
It's all right. Hey, you have the subject, you have a conjunction there. And next time we come together, we'll have it all together. All right.
No, I mean, that's just so hard. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
That's all right. And trust me, I've actually, when I've had interviews with governors before, and it's been the same thing. Like, let me get my PR person. I'll get back to you on that. So I understand that. Definitely understand that. Hey, you could stay offline for just a moment afterwards. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and watching tonight. This is Micaela Bastianelli, the features editor at the Panther newspaper at Chapman University in Orange, California. Micaela, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you.